You know, changing the oil on your outboard isn't difficult, and you don't need to be a mechanic to do it. And doing it yourself helps you to stay in tune with the health of your boat and will save you some money in the process. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through the 4 simple steps to changing your oil on your 4-stroke outboard. And I'll be using my Mercury 150 4-stroke as an example, but these steps apply to most brands and sizes. And along the way, I'll explain why certain steps are important, not just how to do them. So let's start with the set of items you will need to do an oil change. For nearly every engine, you will need a drain pan and paper towels. You'll also need an oil filter wrench. You can see I've got a couple of them there. And depending on your engine, either a socket set or open wrench, or an Allen wrench, or a large flathead screwdriver to open and close your drain port. In my case, the Mercury 150 requires a 16 millimeter or 5/8 wrench, which you can see down there. Of course, you will also need the proper oil and oil filter. Now, if you have a Mercury or Yamaha and you don't know the correct oil filter for your engine, I have created a couple of videos that help explain how to look up the part numbers for the things that you will need, and I will leave a link to that in the video description. For a Mercury 150, you can also use a piece of 12 millimeter or 7/16 hose, which you see over here, that will help keep the oil from running down your lower unit. Finally, it's helpful to have a funnel and some rubber gloves to help make the process just a little bit less messy. So step 1 is to drain out your old oil. And if your engine is not already warmed up, it'd be a good idea to run it for a little bit if possible. Not mandatory, but heating up your old oil will help it to drain faster and help remove any contaminants, so you get a cleaner flush. Next, you want to remove your cowl, and the way you do that is you just pull out this latch here, push up on this handle, kind of push forward at the same time, release the catch in the front. Now, what you want to do next is find the drain plug on your particular engine. And on the Mercury 150, you can see it's right here. It's actually a drain valve. It's in the kind of what they call a midsection. And don't confuse this with the vent plug for your gear case. That's a little bit lower. That's below the cavitation plate, and you can see that down here. So that's your vent plug for your gear case. That's not what we're talking about. We want this valve right here, a little bit higher on the midsection. Now, if your engine oil drain plug is a solid bolt or screw, you will need to completely remove it to drain your oil. It will likely have a washer or a seal with it, so be sure not to lose that. Now, in the case of the Mercury 150, you actually have this drain valve that I mentioned a moment ago. And what you actually want to do is loosen it up with your 5/8 wrench, just enough so that you can kind of, but not open it all the way, just so you can loosen it by hand. And then at that point, then you attach your drain hose if your engine is equipped for that. And so you put that over the valve, like so, just so you have a cleaner process. And that way this can drain into your drain pan and not slop all over your lower unit. So with your drain hose in place, all you want to do now is just loosen up that valve by hand, and still you get a decent flow coming out of there. And you don't want to take that all the way off. They say, you know, up to 2.5 turns. Okay, so I've got a pretty good flow now. I'm just going to let that drain out. Now, one of the other things that you should do to help it drain is to pop up your dipstick. That'll, like so. That'll help it to air out or vent a little bit easier, make the oil flow out a little faster. Now, as your oil is draining out, this is a good time to take a good look at it. If it's milky, that's a sign of water intrusion. If it smells like, you can smell fuel in it, then that may mean that you've got fuel dilution. And if it feels gritty or you see metallic flakes in it, that points to engine wear. Now, in my case, which is most common, it's just dark. It's dark oil, so I don't see any chunks of metal or anything like that, so that's good. But it's important to check that nonetheless, because that's your engine report card, and one of the reasons why it's beneficial to change your own oil. Now, the next step is to remove your oil filter, and you're going to likely need a pair of oil filter wrench to do that. But for the Mercury 150 specifically, there's one other thing I want to point out. They have this little drain pan underneath, right here, underneath the oil filter, and it has this little yellow plug, which you can see right here. And what you can do is pop that plug off. There we go. Set it aside. And then what you want to do is take your drain hose that you're using to drain your engine, and you attach it to that little port underneath the drain pan. That way you'll collect any other residual oil from your oil filter rather than having it run down into your lower pan here. So then now with that in place, again, most engines don't have that. That's kind of unique to Mercury. So with that in place, now what you want to do is take your oil filter wrench and twist off your oil filter, which could be on there fairly tight. And then you can just discard that. Probably a good idea to drain out that oil into your oil pan so you have it all the old oil in one place. So what you want to do here is just, take a rag or paper towels and just kind of clean out any residual oil in that little oil tray. Okay, so before you put on your new filter, you want to take some oil on your finger, rub it around the rim, on the rubber gasket. That'll just help it to seal a little bit better. Then go ahead and spin it on. And then once it kind of gets to making contact with the metal bracket, then you want to give it about a 3/4 turn or so from that point in time. I'm going to use a different wrench to tighten it up a little bit more, but you don't have to get it super tight. And the reason why I'm using this wrench is because I don't want to crush, I don't want to crush my oil filter. At this point in time, all you need to do, remove your hose if your engine is so equipped, and don't forget to replace the little drain plug, the cover there. Okay, so now with the oil filter in place, it's time to tighten up your ports or replace your drain screw, and we're ready to add the oil back in. Now when you put in the drain screw or drain valve in this case, you don't need to tighten it up really snug. Just get it, get pretty good and tight, but you don't have to really torque it down. Okay, that's good. Now, oil is one of those areas that a lot of people make a mistake with. First thing is you should never use a automotive type of oil, and that's because you need to use an oil that is made by your manufacturer or is FC-W certified. FC-W stands for 4-cycle water cooled, and that's a certification from the NMMA, that's National Marine Manufacturers Association. You'll know this by the symbol on the label. FC-W oil meets the standards set by the NMMA for marine use and has extra additives to fight corrosion and resist foaming at high RPMs. Car oil just isn't up, doesn't hold up to that marine environment. You also have a choice between mineral oil, synthetic oil, or a synthetic blend. All are acceptable, but synthetic oils will generally hold up better under heat and provide better wear protection, leading to longer engine life. Now, I've created a separate video to help you choose between the various types of oils and oil weights, and I'll leave a link to that in the video description. For the most part, I would recommend using a synthetic oil if your engine is 75 horsepower or greater, but I'm actually going to put in a mineral oil in this particular case, and that's because I bought a lot of oil years ago by mistake, mineral oil by mistake, and so I'm going to be using that up before I eventually switch to the synthetic. Now, when it comes to adding oil, one of the things you got to be careful about is you obviously don't want too little oil, but you don't want too much either. Overfilling can cause foaming and excess crankcase pressure, and that can actually damage your seals. So the key is to gradually add your oil and check the dipstick when you're getting close. And you want to target the middle of the dipstick range, not the very top. Now, the Mercury 150 takes 6 liters of oil, or 6.3 quarts, since a liter is just a little bit bigger than a quart. And in the US, oil is typically sold in quart sizes, not liters, so you will need 7 quarts to work with. One exception to this is sometimes Mercury offers oil change kits, which they sometimes package with liter bottles. So if you buy one of those for, say, a Mercury 150, it might include 6 1-liter bottles, so don't be confused by that. So on the Mercury 150, the oil fill location is pretty obvious. They marked it with this yellow cap up here. So what I'm going to do is put the funnel in place, and then I'm going to add 6 quarts of oil to start with, and which will likely be less than what I need. But I'll add the 6 quarts first, check it on the dipstick, and then add a little bit more as needed, because again, the engine will hold up to 6.3 quarts. Obviously, you don't want to add any more than that. So at this point, I've added 6 quarts of oil. Now this engine can hold up to 6.3 quarts, but I want to see where we're at. So we're going to check the dipstick real quick and see where we're at before we add any more oil. So that is just around the midpoint of the acceptable range, which is perfect. So I'm not going to add any oil at this point in time. What we're going to do next is I am going to put the muffs on the engine, start it up, run it for a minute or two, shut it down, and then we'll recheck the oil at that point in time. Because you want to do that to check for any leaks, and when you cycle that oil through, it'll circulate the oil through your cylinder block and all the passages and fill that oil filter. And so we'll recheck the oil level after we do that. So if you've never done this before, what you need to do is get yourself a pair of muffs like these. You place it over the gear case, and you want the muffs over the water intake slots on your gear case, and try to cover them up as best as possible. And so then you turn your water on full blast. I'm going to start the engine, let it run for a minute or two, shut it down, and then we'll recheck things. So while the engine was running, I checked, I took a close look at it to see if there's any oil coming out of the oil filter or the drain port. All looked good. Now what I want to do is pull the drain plug and see if we need to add a little bit more oil. I let it sit for a couple of minutes so it could settle back down. And it's actually, it's a little bit lower than it was before, but now it's like perfectly right in the center of the range. So I'm going to just leave it at that rather than adding any more oil. So we're good to go, all done with the oil change. All we need to do is put the cowl back on, wipe down the engine, and we're good to go. So there you have it. That's all there is to changing your oil in 4 easy steps that most anyone can do. Now, a few final tips. You should change your oil every 100 hours, or say at the end of the year, whichever comes first. Secondly, be sure to track your maintenance work in a maintenance log or in a boating app, such as Yachtwave, which is what I prefer to use. That will help you to remember the work that you've done, and will also help you with the resale value should you decide to sell your boat someday. Thirdly, you can dispose of your used oil properly at many auto parts stores or quick change oil facilities. Oftentimes they'll take that in for free, so look for that. If you do this regularly, your outboard will thank you with many years of reliable service. So let me know in the comments section whether you do your own maintenance, your own oil changes, or whether you have someone do it for you. And if you do your own, what, if anything, do you find most challenging or confusing with the process? Well, if you found this video helpful, hit that like button. Also, be sure to subscribe to my channel to get my weekly tips and insights to help you purchase, equip, and maintain your boat. In the meantime, thanks for watching, and I will see you on the water.